If you guys missed it, Yakuza 0 is on PC right now, and if you're up to a hell of a fun game, there's nothing wrong with Yakuza 0. There was an article talking about the reason why Yakuza is successful in the West. The boss of Sega commented how the Yakuza game series are quite successful. The game represents its original Japanese IP, the Japanese roadmap, the Japanese content. Absolutely none of it is watered down for the West. Whatever they're doing right now with Yakuza is evidently successful and is evidently working. I'm bringing this up because staying true to your original vision is exactly the reason why a lot of video games are successful right now. All the Yakuza game developers did is to make the games fun and exciting. When video games come from Japan, there are obviously going to be some changes, but none of these changes should be detrimental to the source material. Of course, the essential changes like an English translation is necessary, and the dubs are perfectly optional, but the gameplay mechanics, the aesthetics, the clothings, the settings, dumbing them down for the Western audiences would only lead us to whatever Fire Emblem Fates was, which is perhaps best described as modern day 4Kids. And thus we arrived in this article, which talks about Japanese games, fan services, and how game companies shouldn't pander to the fans at all.
Why games shouldn't pander to fan services and toxic fandoms.
Because we personally don't like it, and we want these game companies, especially the Japanese ones, to not make any sorts of money. F the fans, am I right?
Look, I really love my Japanese games and love
No, you don't. No, you don't. If you do, then you would recognize that fan service has been a staple of Japanese games for years, and they're the bloodlines that make them profitable, fun, and radically different to their Western counterparts. You eye-rolling at fan service is a huge warning sign that you're just a normie pretending to love Japanese games. And here's the thing, I'm not a fan service guy as well. I personally find them gratuitous and not really that appealing. But there are two types of people regarding fan services. The first one didn't like them but recognized that there's an audience for these sorts of things, so they move on with their life. And the second one wants those specific audiences to be dropped in the nearest extraterrestrial dimension, and you, sir, are starting to sound like the second.
As a term, fan service originated in Japanese anime and manga, which extends to anime-style games. It's mostly about giving the fans what they want, but mostly refers to the old-fashioned mantra of sex sells. You'll see it in the sexy outfits you can dress female characters, like French maid, school uniform, and skimpier varieties.
I see absolutely nothing wrong with this practice. Let people buy whatever skins they want.
Sometimes it's a cheap scene deliberately exploiting an opportunity to catch your favorite female character exposed, like a visit to the hot springs. Of course, gratuitous content exists in other media, but its tropes in Japanese games are particularly well-worn and questionable.
It is so questionable that these sorts of games are selling pretty damn well, and in a lot of ways perhaps outnumbering the sales of a lot of Western games in current year. Oh wait, that doesn't matter. What matters is my personal feelings on these outfits.
Take the recently released JRPG Shining Resonance Refrain, featuring a predominantly female cast. You've got Sonia, a headstrong princess who's less damsel and more warrior. In fact, she's even introduced rescuing our protagonist. But never mind how compelling you might find her character arc, because what fans care about is seeing skin, hence the outfits you can dress her and your other female companions in, reducing them into the male protagonist's harem.
So what you're saying here is these outfits are completely optional. Shining Resonance Refrain was also on Steam right now and they released it with all of the DLCs. It's a 4-year-old game with all of the DLCs released, and the outfits that you dress on them are completely optional. You can just, I don't know, not use them. Also, I love how you say, never mind how compelling you might find her character arc. In other words, I don't care if the game's character is well written. The moment that character dares to put a little bit of skin, that character is automatically not a character and just another part of the male protagonist's harem. Now, if you're talking about people putting swimsuits to the characters instead of the normal outfits that they use, I can see your point, but you also complain about characters being in hot springs, which means that even if it's in a situation where it makes freaking sense that the characters take their clothes off, you're still looking at them as sex objects. Keep in mind that the Japanese fans are supposed to be the immature one here.
Granted, Shining Resonance first released in Japan 4 years ago, so this localization simply includes all of the original DLCs. Nonetheless, it's jarring to see these titillating outfits completely divorced from the game's context.
Sorry. What you said last time? You love Japanese games, right? If you do love these Japanese games, you might recognize that these completely optional outfits from the DLCs of the game are meant to be fan service in nature. Ninja. Of course they're gonna be completely divorced from the game's context. That's the point. If you love Japanese games, these are the sorts of things that I don't have to educate you on, and yet here we are. You're only convincing me more and more that you're just a fake poser.
I can't help but wonder why the creators put in this tired fan service in the first place. Specifically, what does that say about what they think of their fans? Surely it's time to consider that fan isn't just a byword for horny 14-year-old boys.
Ladies and gentlemen, here's another proof that this person is an absolute fake. You love Japanese games so much, you insult their fan base and calling them a bunch of horny 14-year-old boys. Say what you want about these horny 14-year-old boys, at least they don't look at these characters showing their skin off and immediately ignore their characters and personalities and dismiss them as sex objects.
I'm not trying to be puritanical.
Yes, you are.
After all, Bayonetta is a character very much defined by her sexuality, while Senran Kagura doesn't have any pretense over its busty girl ninjas. Similarly, BioWare fans also clamor for their characters to get it on, but context here is key.
Ryder, you don't get to talk about context when you're complaining about a game with completely optional sexy outfits that are supposed to be divorced from the game's context. It's like talking about comedy right after you're offended by someone making your mama jokes.
When it comes to Dead or Alive, there's only so far you can convince players that it's a serious fighting game with deep mechanics without the breast physics and skimpy outfits getting in the way. It's precisely why Team Ninja have dropped both elements in Dead or Alive 6, while marking a change of direction for more brutal realism, which in turn shows the series innovating and maturing.
And by innovating and maturing, you mean we can actually and realistically see women being horrendously beaten up in a video game. This is not innovation. This is Team Ninja taking a sidestep. They're not doing the fan service clothes that demean these women, sure, so they make these women look realistically beaten instead, which I would argue is even worse for women. Also, thanks to the series innovating and maturing, I've heard more and more of the fans refusing to buy the next game. Congratulations, Team Ninja.
It doesn't mean sexy anime girls can't appeal to other audiences, like bisexual or lesbian women, but let's not kid ourselves, this kind of fan service has been made principally with a male gaze.
Yes. And so far you have given me no reason why should I or anyone care if it is trying to appeal to the male gaze. Also, anybody who uses the male gaze unironically should absolutely ring your alarm bells.
Even the latest Persona dancing spin-offs include a VR viewing mode that allows upskirt angles.
You do realize that the Persona dancing spin-offs are meant to be fan service games, right? So of course you're gonna have skimpy outfits and fan service elements like that. Have you seen Ren cross-dressing as a female police officer? People went freaking nuts with that outfit.
It is not known how the Western localization will handle this, but considering the PS4 version as the equivalent of an M rating in Japan, imagine having to explain why that is. It's enough to alienate fans who just want to either enjoy a good rhythm game or spend time with their favorite characters, and not perv on them.
Wow. You have completely missed the point of the Persona dancing games in just that one paragraph. You love Japanese games, huh? You love them so much that you don't know how a fan service game works. Oh great, the writer is now talking about toxic fandom. Carry on, please.
Point being, a fan is anyone who just really likes someone or something. Look it up if you must. But when an issue like this comes up, self-appointed gatekeepers reveal the worst side of the fandom when they don't get what they want.
Oh really? Please give me examples.
Take the instance when past Nintendo localizations remove or altered content from releases like Xenoblade Chronicles X and Fire Emblem Fates. Not only there was cry of censorship, but it led to a female employee at Nintendo becoming the target of a harassment campaign, ultimately leading to her termination.
Oh, Ryder, thank you so much for bringing me to a little bit of a nostalgic trance. I remember the good old days when I complained about the censorship of Fire Emblem Fates. I also complained about the horrendous localizations of it. Seriously, how can anyone think that this is acceptable? How can anyone think that this is acceptable? As for the harassment campaign directed to a female employee in Nintendo, you're talking about Allison Rapp, who was indeed a female employee in Nintendo. I will 100% admit to you that the criticisms directed to her are misguided, because she herself wants the boob slider in Xenoblade Chronicles X. However, that's not why she was fired. The reason why she was fired is because she works at Nintendo Treehouse, having her social media account with their company's name on it, while having a second job that is in conflict with Nintendo's interests. What kind of job, you might ask? Not safe for work kind of job. In other words, she was fired because she broke the company's rules by doing jobs that are clearly not representative of Nintendo's public image. And by you defending this, you are condoning people, especially women, for breaking company's rules, which is the same thing that journalists do when Jessica Price was fired from ArenaNet for basically being an asshole to a major influencer in Guild Wars 2. More details in another video.
It's not just games where fandom can spiral down to a narrow retrograde definition. Just look at the subset of people behind #Remake The Last Jedi or the supporters of Comicsgate.
Oh no, you don't like the opinions that The Last Jedi was awful and the comic book industry is now nothing but propaganda. Could you wait for a second over there? Let me play the world's smallest violin.
They would have you believe that they are the real fans, protecting their hobbies from outside forces with political agendas.
They actually are the real fans because they're the ones who buy these things, as opposed to you who don't actually buy these things and complain about things that are completely optional. I love my Japanese games, but screw people for having options that I don't like.
What's really been happening is that times have changed, and these franchises are loved by more people. And hey, guess what? They're a diverse bunch. Is it too obvious to point out that a fan of anime, games, sci-fi, or comics can be anyone, not just a straight white dude with serious insecurity issues?
Okay, first off. And second, I find it bizarre that you have to include white as one of the identifiers. So far, you're talking about things that will definitely please straight men. Hot chicks are hot regardless of race, but why white men specifically? Are you telling me that non-white men don't find hot chicks hot? Or is it because you briefly talked about The Last Jedi remake and Comicsgate, which has nothing to do with any of these in the first place? If you're gonna make a hot take on fan service, at least stay on topic. The ultimate downside of fan service. The only downside that fan service has is it upsets people like you. And I don't consider that a downside, to be honest. I consider that an upside. Here's a sad song from the world's smallest violin.
Fanservice needn't just mean gratuitous titillation. After all, the arguably biggest piece of fanservice in gaming this year has been Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. It's everything its fans want, every character from the history of the series, and still the exact same mechanics.
Now please tell us how that is somehow a bad thing.
The downside is that this pandering ultimately stifles any possible innovation for fear of upsetting the fragile fandom. For crying out loud, we're talking about a community that still won't retire its 17-year-old iteration from major tournaments.
So, what do you think Smash Bros. Ultimate should do? Not give you all the characters from the previous Smash Bros? Not giving you improved mechanics and movesets? I don't get it, writer. You need to define what you mean as innovation, because I have a bad feeling what you mean as innovation is the same thing as destroying it.
The last time Nintendo pandered to its fans so much was with The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. The pursuit of a darker, more realistic Zelda game over the controversial cel-shaded aesthetic of Wind Waker was exactly what the fans wanted, and still remains one of the most rapturous reaction in E3 history, but let's face it, it also did the least to push the series forward.
Wow, something that I agree with in this article. What a shocker. You are correct that in some ways fan backlash will only prevent innovations from going further, but the thing that you need to understand about fan backlash is that while the fans are not always right, they are also not always wrong. This is why we need to take a look at things in a case-by-case basis. Your Twilight Princess and Wind Waker example is really good, because that highlights that Twilight Princess, while good on its own, is not really bringing any sort of innovation to the franchise, and Wind Waker's art style is innovative, but it's not well received by the fans. At the time. Right now, people accepted it as part of the canon because Wind Waker was pretty good and people loved it. It is perfectly fine to take risks and try new things as long as you're making something good. However, your previous examples like Dead or Alive 6 are not good because Dead or Alive is a series that is built on the fan service. Some people see it as a serious fighting game, but at the end of the day, the moment they make the extreme beach volleyball games, they have basically set their stones. So removing the fan service is betraying what the series was built on. Say what you want about the fans being a bunch of horny 14-year-old losers, These people are the ones who keep the franchise afloat. The moment these games deviate from its original vision to appeal to a small minority of people that don't buy the game anyway, that's where the fans stop becoming fans and stop buying the game. I think the best phrase to illustrate this scenario is get woke, go broke, which means that the moment your franchise decided that politics and social agendas are more important to talk about than bringing high quality entertainment, that's where these franchises are gonna lose money. For example, Star Wars. More details in my video down below. Your worst example in this scenario is easily Smash Bros. Ultimate. Smash Bros. Ultimate gives the fans exactly what they wanted, and you're criticizing it for not being innovative. So please give me suggestions in how to make it more innovative.
There can be clever fan service that can be done well, from crossovers to Easter eggs, but ultimately, creators can always do better than simply pandering and stagnating in the process. If you want to create cool or sexy outfits, then why not go beyond the same tired tropes?
So your criticism now is that they are tired and boring? I thought you complained about them because they're gratuitous and titillating. If your complaint is that they're boring and uninspired, I would actually agree with you. Yes, I agree that fanservice needs to have a little bit more innovation. And what I mean as innovation is having these characters to be put in skin-tight vinyl catsuit. Wait, that's not right. That's the original outfit. Duct tape? My point is simply, why is it boring? Why is it tired? Is it tired because it's gratuitous and titillating? Or is it tired because it isn't gratuitous and titillating and just merely boring and uninspired? Now we can have all the discussions about fan services and how they're uninspired and boring, but your criticism here is that they're titillating, which is like criticizing a burger for not being healthy.
Think of the very imaginative cosmetics in Overwatch, from the Bowie inspired for Moira or the Diva Gremlin emote referencing a fan-made meme. Otherwise, consider that fans have a much more diverse definition than the same narrow vocal bunch would have you believe. As it stands, fanservice looks retrograde, conservative, and just plain boring.
And it also makes tons and tons of money. I can cite you examples after examples after examples of these Japanese games making tons and tons of money thanks to having unique concepts, attractively designed characters, and staying true to their authentic original vision. But of course, the money is not important for these gaming companies. What's more important is being progressive, being liberal, and of course, being not boring. Unfortunately, writer, I and pretty much a lot of Western audiences who love these Japanese games have to disagree with you. This retrograde, conservative, and boring fan services still work quite well to this day, and people still enjoy them and love these games more than Western games in general. This is what's most appealing in Japanese games, and if you don't really like it, feel free to begone home, thought.